So obviously, because I couldn't make it obvious enough in my previous videos, stepping into new territory here, I'm going to restate myself in a few key points of these videos because it's obviously clear a large sum of you don't give a shit or miss the point entirely. First off, the titles. These aren't clickbait, you're simply misinterpreting their meaning. They're an allusion to the content in the video, stating what is bad about a game, not illicitly calling bad. Second, these are not reviews. They are simply rant videos primarily outlining what is bad. Nothing more, nothing less. Thirdly, and most importantly, if I do not state in the video that I don't like the game, then I do not hate it. I seriously shouldn't have to reiterate these points, but holy hell, the overwhelming flood of seething angsty teenagers ready to square up over these shitty videos because they can't take a moment to think or read is hilarious. Anyways, on to the point of this video. You played it. I played it. We all played it, haven't we? Need for Speed Most Wanted is a childhood gem of many, and while you're all begging for it to get a half-assed remaster, I'm wishing this game had better mods. God damn. Regardless, this game stands as another iron giant among many of the 2000s as the neck-and-neck competitor for the best NFS game against Underground 2, which I would have loved to do a video on first instead of this game, but unfortunately for me, I haven't suffered enough time with Underground 2 myself to justify doing one of these videos for it. Like the Burnout game, this game stands on its untouchable pedestal where it has somehow achieved godlike status through pure mediocrity and the crazed fans who refuse to admit that it's not as good as it could or should be. Beginning with this game's visual design, you've all heard it, you've all gotten rid of it, the piss filter. Man, what was it with devs in the 2000s and raunchy post effects? I can live with it, but I won't say it's the prettiest as the game can and does look better without it on. Nothing wrong with the models themselves, but goddamn, so many of the kits in this game are absolutely wrecked by really odd tidbits, weird out of place vents, or oversized grills that absolutely shit on them and would be otherwise fine without. I would like to fix these personally, but I'll need to figure out Car Toolkit without caving my skull in, so don't hold your breath. Livery designs in this game are super inconsistent among the blacklist and tend to bother me. I know it's supposed to be a personality representing each racer, but some liveries just end up looking really barren compared to others, and it irks me to no end. While I will say some blacklist cars in general aren't exactly the prettiest, as I said, their personality to each racer, and in that right, my subjective taste as to what's good and bad here doesn't really mean anything. Physics side of the game, they're not great, and they're not horrible either. Everything in early game drives like a 20-ton brick, and for some reason cars, instead of sucking down into turns, roll as land whale SUVs would do. While this isn't really an issue for most of the game, running some late game spec cars, I've come to realize when you brake and turn really hard, your car has a strange tendency to pull off the ground completely, and I've had a couple instances I almost rolled my car because it would kick up on two wheels. By late game, the strange weighty feeling is no longer there, so cars feel more like cars and drive rather well, excessive body roll aside. Into actual gameplay, let me start with customization. It's not great. 4 layers of vinyls have been removed in favor of only one, which really crunches down on your ability to make interesting liveries, as some vinyls were clearly meant to serve as bottom layers with more to be overlaid above. I'm not really going to cry a river about losing the individual kit options. Yes, it sucks, but customization is no longer a main focus in this game, and I can live with the selection being whittled down to only a couple kits per car. However, being that a lot of this game's kits are ruined in many ways, this idea fucking sucked. I wish they didn't remove light options though, because the eyelids that come with some of the kits in this game are downright terrible, and I would rather just leave them without. Obviously, being that some of the parts and kits in this game, including roof scoops, were carried from Underground 2, they're fucking important. Seriously, why would you ever put half of these trash heaps on your car besides to point and laugh at it? What street racer on planet Earth would put some of this slapstick joke tier shit on anything they own, no less vehicles like Lamborghinis, Audis, and Mercedes-Benz? You have to be stillborn or 7 years old because not even the blacklist racers use most of them. By this point, the game should have went for a color picker instead of the palette options, because while the selection isn't bad by any means, there are some extra little shades in between that would have been fantastic to be able to have. The game's AI randomization can come out with some of the worst possible results for making cars, and man do I wish this game had less ugly shit to play with, or just more restrictions on how the randomizer puts cars together for them, making some color combos much harder to come across, or certain decals and parts being much less frequent. Having something like this would have been astronomical. Difficulty-wise, the game's balancing is fine, besides maybe a couple endgame spec instances in Quick Race where the AI will absolutely dust you if you don't pass in the first half. I've never really encountered problems with rubber banding as far as I'm concerned, so as people would tend to belligerently complain about with the black box games. As far as comp chases are concerned, only problems I've come across with the comps themselves is a couple of spots where they go brain dead, as well as some cases where they pull the obvious scripted sniff you out for added difficulty. Otherwise, my complaints stem as far as early game comps being far too lightweight and easy to push around, and the way the heat levels are ordered. I find it kind of strange they go from marked comps to unmarked to marked to unmarked to marked again. It makes zero sense in a logical situation. In a real scenario would run all of the marked vehicles before finally bringing out unmarked as their last resort. If the desolate open world had roaming rivals you could do impromptu races with, or outrun events likewise Underground 2, the undercover cops could pose a very real threat, but since that never happens, if you see anything that isn't some unlicensed shitbox, you just turn around and run. The pursuit breakers are a good concept to easily cut down hordes of cops in a rapid succession. However, I'm not really a fan of how they tend to suck in police cars that don't even touch the debris, just for some reason kill cops within a certain range, so you end up with completely fresh vehicles magically totaled. I'm sure you say it would have made them much harder to time, but having to time it right would have been a nice extra touch of difficulty, so that's not just cheap and easy kills, or in some cases, escape. On the other hand, there are some cases where the police have too much of an upper hand, that being between spike strips and using the reset button. It's thankfully fixed in Carbon, but in Most Wanted, going over a spike strip is literally instant game over because unless you are already evading, you're not going to go anywhere. Your vehicle simply slows down until it comes to a complete stop. The reset button is absolutely useless because touching it at all means being busted instantly. I get it was made this way so the player couldn't abuse it to get out of situations with ease, but in cases where the player vehicle is absolutely stuck or cannot move, it's frustrating that you can't free yourself, especially in some instances like pursuit breakers toppling on you. The open world in this game is absolutely useless, as you'd expect from mostly any open world game, especially during that era, apart from having to venture out in order to retune your vehicle, buy a new one, or do the speed camera bounty events. Even less developed titles like the Invictus series Street Legal, or as well as even Street Racing Syndicate and hell, Underground 2 all had roaming drivers in their world you could challenge for some side cash, but this for whatever reason is missing in Most Wanted. The most you get is when your race ends, you get to watch the drivers from it all sprawl out until they all despawn when they get out of your sight. Blacklist grind in the game is nothing short of absolutely monotonous, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't reiterate my belief that every black box game post-dating Underground 1 feels unfinished or watered down in some manner. Most Wanted is no stranger, and seeing some extra modes such as the scrap cash grab and a drifting mode, which presumably never made it past early concept was brought back for Carbon, make me wish they never gutted them, even if they would have been a bit janky to play, since anything is better than the horrible event span you have to endure playing through the career. Drags are the only real different side mode you get to play, but of course most people hate drag mode, so what good did that do? Lucky me, I'm not one of those people. Traffic variety in a couple cases can feel a bit lackluster, especially when like half of the game's traffic vehicles are only just scripted for drag races or cutscenes anyway, so it's not like you'll see them all too often, if at all. As far as sound design is concerned, I have no complaints, but the soundtrack, however, of course, why wouldn't I? Once again, EA proves to us that they forget the idea behind a lot of rap in the first place by handing forth a selection of rap songs that have been censored to hell and back that play in the menus. Sure, I get it was done for meeting ESRB requirements, because correct me if I'm wrong here, but songs that swear can warrant a game an M rating, which is fucking inane if you ask me. But, needless to say, they should have went for songs that required less censorship or simply stuff more on the caliber of like Executioners, where vocals are much less involved, if at all. On to my final words. Of course, I don't hate this game. As stated previously, I would say so if I did. It's a childhood classic of mine as well, and quite frankly, I enjoy coming back to it time and time again. I still like to reiterate my thought that the pursuits have yet to be topped by any game in the series, at least personally to me. It falls short in a number of ways, but at the least, it's not Underground 2 or wannabe Underground 3. Would I suggest it? Yeah. Do I want a shitty remaster of it? No. You guys are just ads and get robbed of your money, and for what? Just go play the damn game. Stop crying about dumb shit like 4K textures and 300,000 poly models. Does the game really need it? No. You're all just unreasonably stingy. It's not like it was console exclusives like Burnout, so if you have a PC, it's not hard to get your hands on it, let alone attempt to emulate it on mobile with the GameCube ports. That is if you have a phone strong enough. Otherwise, if you work a steady paycheck and actually have money to spare, you'd probably spend less money on a PS2 and a fresh copy than you would for some dog shit remaster that you all have been belligerently bugging for anyways. Remember kids, Ghost Games never gave a shit about you, and you don't want NFS remasters. Believe me on that.